So in order to still keep the education and the discussion flowing, wanted to hop on today. So thanks for those of you that were able to reschedule and join today. And those of you that are watching live, go ahead and let us know that you're here. If you are watching the stream later, hit hashtag replay so we can follow up and make sure we answer any questions you have about this discussion and how it relates to the overall discussion of power. So this is the second in our 4-part series on discussing power. Last week on Wednesday, we talked about terminology and the words associated with power, and basically started to get some of those fundamentals down to clarify the distinction between a power over paradigm and a power with paradigm. Today, we are going to go a bit deeper and look at locus of control, mindset, and how your mindset can indeed create your reality. Then next week, back on Wednesdays again, next week we will talk about trust and power and how trust is critical for embodying and supporting and moving forward with a power with leadership mentality. Something is beeping in here. I'm sorry. Okay, just stopped. So yeah, for those of you that see a different background, it's because I'm working in the camper. We have a lot of construction going on in our home. So thanks for bearing with me. All right. Any questions on the discussion that we had last week or what's coming up before I jump into today and mindset and reality?
The only thing was the invitation to Clubhouse. So I don't know if any of the ladies have joined. I've been listening in. Absolutely amazing and inspirational, all the talks. And they've got like a millionaires club on and over 50s club. It's so good, motivational women. But I missed your talk because I had to be accepted into the room.
Oh, really? And it was late for you, I think, if I'm remembering the time. So, yeah. And so Clubhouse is so interesting. Yes, if anybody wants an invitation, doesn't have one, I know that we've gotten them for a couple of people, and we're all about sharing the knowledge. And it's interesting how Clubhouse has done that. They've sort of positioned that FOMO that you need an invitation, but it's actually quite easy to get an invitation to come to Clubhouse. It's only, I believe, still only on iOS devices, so Apple devices. Gaynor, the talk that I did, that was the first one that I did on Clubhouse, and I'm planning a couple more with other colleagues and people that I know in this industry. That talk was interesting and I enjoyed it. That being said, there were like 7 of us talking, so it felt like you didn't really get deep on any particular aspect of the topic. And it's a huge topic, right? If we're talking about women, money, and patriarchy, like we could go on for hours. Let's not let's not joke, right? And we want to, so I actually want to have more discussions on that particular topic. I don't think that host who had invited me on is going to talk more about that anytime soon. If she does, I'll try and hop on. But also I wasn't completely in love with the having 7 or 8, maybe even 8 people talk for like an hour, because it just seemed like it wasn't as much of a conversation as it can be with a smaller group of people. So anyway, but yeah, Clubhouse is really neat. It's fun to explore. Christina, I see that you'd like an invitation and we'll get one over. I'll send you, I think I need your phone number, which I think I've got, so I'll double check, but I believe that's how the invitations go. So yeah, if you are not already on Clubhouse and you are an Apple user, by all means get on. It's nice in terms of like another social media platform. At first I was like, oh my gosh, another one, but it's just audio, right? It's almost like listening to radio shows, but a lot of them you have the opportunity to call in, if you remember radio shows of yore, right? Where they'll actually invite people up to comment and talk on stage. And so that was another reason why I wasn't in love with what we did last week, because nobody had time to invite anybody else up. So anyway, yeah, that's a great reminder, Gaynor. And for anybody that's watching the stream or the recording, reach out to me or Janesta after this if you would like an invitation to Clubhouse, because there's so much great content on there. And thought leaders, well, caution, people are putting themselves forward as thought leaders. And that's true anywhere on social media, right? So if it resonates with you, if it's grounded in facts, they're probably a thought leader or they're an emerging thought leader. But if it seems like it's not grounded in facts, you know, just use your discretion as you need to do anywhere in social media these days. Great. Any other questions? Okay, let's jump into it. All right, so first I want to talk about locus of control. And when you think about locus of control, it's basically how much control do you as an individual have? And people, this is a psychological term, people that are seen to and evaluated to have a high internal locus of control feel as though they have a large ability to influence what happens around them in their world. So they feel, if we can use other words, I'd use words like autonomous. They feel in control. They feel like they can shape their destiny. They feel these things that lead them ultimately, in psychological terms, to be happier. So people that have a high internal locus of control feel that they have a lot of control of things that happen in their lives. Now, that does not mean that they will not have things happen that they can't control, right? None of us can control, illness. None of us can control various things that just happen in our lives that are terrible. And people that have a high internal locus of control recognize that they can control how they respond to said situation. So that is, in short, a quick, and I'm just going to change this so that people could come in, because sorry, I have to keep letting people in and it's distracting me. All right. So that is just a quick definition of locus of control. And those that have, again, a high internal locus of control feel as though they have a lot of ability to influence how things are unfolding in their life. They can make choices. They feel autonomous. Perhaps they are even in positions of privilege, and they can recognize that while also working to generate more equality. They know that they can influence their life. They feel in control of their life. Now, even those that have a high internal locus of control may not always feel that way, right? They may go into a situation or have something happen, and of course they are having emotional responses to it. They're feeling overwhelmed and they are not happy with where they are. They're not thinking about how to best position themselves in the situation. They're simply managing being in the situation. That is understandable. Again, people with a high internal locus of control in time, and ideally in a relatively short period of time, depending on the situation, will identify where they can then grasp control. Now, control does not mean not having things happen that you don't want to have happen. Control does not mean dictating and specifying what everyone else around them is doing in their life. That is not what we mean by control. When we're talking about control, we are almost exclusively talking about how the individual, how the person, how you who have an internal locus of control, how you are responding. Now, that's in direct contrast to people that, and I think many of us have met some of these people, perhaps know them quite well. And at times we could even perhaps be these people that are like, oh, this always happens to me. Or I just knew everything would go wrong today. There are people that are constantly thinking that. And then there are the people that feel that way once in a while. And we know when we feel that way that that's not necessarily true. So those people, as an example of contrast, those people have a reduced internal, like they do not have an internal locus of control. They instead have an external locus of control. So I'm just going to take a pause, see if there are any questions specifically about this discussion on locus of control, what locus of control means. And from there, we'll go into mindset and reality and how this all relates to power. Any questions? Okay, so as you can, I think many of you listening and here can draw the parallel between locus of control, that feeling of being in control of at least yourself, your situation, knowing how you can impact a situation and largely determine the outcome of what's going to happen, and see how it relates to mindset. It is, again, a psychological term, and it very nicely correlates to mindset. The more that we are not living life by the seat of our pants, the more that we are planning where we want to go in life, and the more we're achieving those plans, the more we reinforce our sense of locus of control. And with that, the stronger our mindset gets, that we can change our lives, that we can follow and pursue our dreams, that we can set objectives and meet them, that we can grow as individuals and ultimately change the way that we move in the world, or embrace the way that we move in the world in a way that's more in alignment with who we are as beings, who we are as leaders, who we are as partners. In all of those ways, we can, through practicing having a high internal locus of control and practicing the mindset reinforcement, we can continue to see these things. So what do you do when you want to have a high internal locus of control, but perhaps find yourself in a situation or in a series of situations where you just feel it's all out of control and nothing is in your remit to have ownership on? You can't get your teeth or your hands around anything. How can you have control in certain situations? Well, the very first thing that you can do is always come back to your breath, right? Be it a really tough meeting where maybe somebody is just acting inappropriately and yelling, be it, you just are going into the office for the first time in 14 months, you're driving to the office and you get rear-ended. There are all sorts of things that can happen that are outside of our direct control, where we can still exhibit a strong level of internal locus of control. The first thing to do is to revert back to your breath, right? We know, and the, pathophysiological data shows that by slowing your breath, slowing your heart rate, you are removing yourself from that, sort of hindbrain activation, that fight, flight, or flee response. And you are, by slowing your breath, by consciously beginning to think more about your ability to impact a situation, you are engaging your prefrontal cortex. And so you are reducing sort of the reactionary and biologically necessary response that you ultimately don't want to be behaving in, right? It's natural for us all to feel it, but there is a big distinction between feeling some emotions, feeling some reactionary responses, and acting in that way, right? So the first thing you do is you call upon your breath. It does not have to be fancy. At the most basic, you can just breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly. And whatever slowly means for you, just work on extending it. Maybe it's initially a count of 4, and then maybe with time you're going to get to 5 and to 6. Do that for what might seem like a very long 30 seconds, 60 seconds, a minute and a half. It is okay to pause and to bring yourself back to your breath. And that is the easiest way that we can, again, bring ourselves back to our breath. Sometimes, especially if we're like in a meeting or in a stressful situation where we're trying to control our facial expressions, it may even be beneficial, if you have a pen and paper, to just be writing something. Just to be, again, engaging that prefrontal cortex and reducing your reactionary response to anything, and gaining more alignment, more focus, more sense of a strong internal locus of control. Now, this comes into play in a power with paradigm. And I'll just pause for anybody that didn't watch last week yet. We were talking about the fact that traditional patriarchal leadership involves power over, those that have what's called justified power because they have higher titles, those that have there's all different types of power, but some are like connection power, which in the traditional definition means you are talking with somebody that has connection power. They are influential because they know influential people. And I think that we need to redefine some of those definitions as we move forward. But if you think about just even that, that idea that somebody has a sense of power because they have a title, and then all the memes that perhaps you've seen on leadership and the fact that leadership is not a title. Leadership is a way of being. There is evolving a shift we're working to advance faster, have people embody more, a shift from power over to power with. And the idea with power with, and again, this was coined by a woman in the early 1900s, is that we are all stronger together, that when we work as a cohesive group, when we get buy-in from others, we are stronger together. And the data that has come out on leadership, in the past 20 plus years shows that teams that take other people's ideas, that, are open to seemingly wacky ideas or are open to going in different directions because it's actually the right direction to go. Those teams are stronger when they are listening to one another, when they are working together and collaboratively. And to have just one person be dictating what should be done means you are losing out on the collective brain trust of all of the really smart people that you're working with. So how does power with turn into locus of control? And how am I drawing that corollary? When you're in a situation where you feel that reactionary response, where you feel like everything is out of control, remember that you are not alone. You want to have an internal locus of control to know what you can control. And one of the things that you can control is the brain trust that you draw upon. Leaders do not have to have all of the answers. In fact, I would argue leaders should not have all of the answers. Leaders should not even have most of the answers. Leaders should be able to and should practice asking the right questions and helping those that they lead and those that they work with and what they're doing in the world, helping that group to actually be getting to a stronger answer through questions, through discussions, through knowing that they could control the situation, but they don't necessarily have to. They can draw on the brain trust. And I love to use the term brain trust because we all have a brain trust at work. We often have a brain trust in our personal lives. There are so many smart people that we know that we can call upon, that even if they have a different solution and one that might not be the right one for us, it at least is getting us to think about the problem or the challenge in a different way. And through that, we may come up with an alternative solution that then we put forward. And that discussion and negotiation happens. And what comes out of it is so much stronger than what you would decide or do alone. And there's another example of how practicing that, right? Drawing yourself back to your breath, knowing that you can't control a situation. Maybe you're in a really crappy situation where something has gone wrong at work. Oh, and your immediate gut response is like, I'm the person that should fix this because this is in my remit. Wait a minute. I don't have to do it alone. Okay. I do have the ability to control my breathing. I do have the ability to control what we do next. I have the ability to call together a brain trust of people that can come up with even a better solution. Maybe work together to ensure that something like this never happens again. All of those things. That is an example of how a leader embodying power with actually helps to build out even more their strong internal locus of control and setting their reality to be a more collaborative reality that actually has a more beneficial outcome. So I know that's a lot in 20 minutes. I'd like to open it once more to any questions. If anybody was watching later, and Michelle, I'm glad you're enjoying this on the stream. If anybody's watching later and you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And then after we do that, we'll open it up and see if there's any coaching or any other topics that the group in the Zoom call would like to talk about. So any questions on locus of control, mindset and reality, power with? It's a quiet group. I hope it's not just because it's Monday, or maybe I hope it's just because it's Monday. Okay. All right. Anybody interested in any coaching? And this does not have to relate to the topic at hand. You know, part of doing these weekly Wednesday trainings is to talk about some information. Sometimes we get in deep conversations about the information. Other times we don't. But if anybody is going through any situations right now, anything that they'd like some coaching on, this is an opportunity for it. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to shut down the stream. Thank you all for coming today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday. We will, as I said, pick up next week on Wednesday again. So we will be back on June 2nd to talk about trust and trust and power with, and the situations where it's really important to be establishing a container of trust to help promote the power with paradigm. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Monday and a great rest of your week. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Tara.